Before we start today's episode, a quick announcement from supporters of this show, Go Venture. Did you know that personal financial literacy is increasingly being taught in schools and universities? Well, today they have a special offer and it's just for teachers. It's a free online course that will help you gain the wisdom to make better money decisions in your own life. And the course will also prepare you to teach personal financial literacy to students. The course allows you to learn at your own pace, and it uses experiential learning to keep you engaged from start to finish. Expand your career opportunities and gain the confidence to be a teaching superhero. Enroll in this course today. It's only free to teachers for a limited time. Go to teachingsuperhero.com. That's teachingsuperhero.com. Brought to you by MediaSpark, the makers of Go Venture. Now, here's today's episode of Inspiring Teachers. Hey everybody, Danny Hogger here. Hope you're having an outstanding week. Thank you so much for checking out our show. Are you looking for new and engaging ways to get your students up and moving in the classroom? Get out of the sit and get rut of teaching by checking out ampeduplearning.com, a two-teacher-owned and operated company in Texas that is looking to gamify teaching with creative new activities for the classroom. From their FREC resources and escape rooms for social studies and science to speed squares and task cards for math and English, they have tons of teacher-created resources. So many good things up there. And don't forget to check out their apparel designed specifically for teachers. Look good and support teachers. That's something I can get behind. Use code HoggerHistory10 to save 10% on all items and follow them on social media at Amped Up Learning for their monthly giveaways of Amazon gift cards, lessons, and apparel. Man, supporting teachers while also supporting teachers, that sounds like something we could really get behind. And don't forget to use that code HoggerHistory10 to save 10% on all items at ampeduplearning.com. What a great way to start. Now let's move on to the show. Thank you so much for supporting Inspiring Teachers.
Welcome to Inspiring Teachers, a show bringing you classroom tips, motivation, and stories from successful educators. Join Tavis Bean and Danny Hogger as they explore the why of teaching.
Tavis, there's a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah.
What do you want to take back from that conversation that you might take back to your classroom?
Well, honestly, in the last 2 years, I really have not incorporated this enough, and I think that there's a lot of room for it. I do a little bit at the beginning of each semester, quarter, of the year where I talk about what are you doing while you're working on a project with your mind? What are you doing with your breath? And I always think it's kind of weird, like I'm in wood shop. Why is he talking about breath? But breath is kind of at the core of everything. I explain to them the science behind why we eat and breathe. I like to ask kids that because they all say, well, to stay alive. It's like, well, why do you need oxygen and food in order to stay alive? And like, so you can live. And they don't really have a good answer for it. And most adults don't really understand the chemistry, what's going on with how the carbohydrate molecules and the oxygen molecules go to our mitochondria and react chemically inside there. And that is our life. And just like a fire when you're camping and you want to make a fire bigger, you got to put more fuel on it and you've got to put more air on it. So you blow on it. And I'll do an activity with them. I'll just say, just take 3 deep breaths with me. And if you take 3 deep breaths, you'll feel that fire of your life get charged. You feel differently. You feel more focused, but more lightheaded. And it's a way that we can step back and when we're stressed or we want to change our state if we're tired, just by taking 3 deep breaths. And I think I should, talking about this again, really incorporate more specific activities into my classroom, because I do think that woodworking has been considered a contemplative act. Any kind of hands-on building making is a contemplative, mind-focusing act. So I'd like to take that.
I agree. And sometimes going to a conference or hearing a speaker or listening to an episode of Inspiring Teachers can help remind you to keep incorporating things that may be beneficial, even if we haven't done them for a while. I had to do a search while you were talking. The last time I did mindfulness in the classroom was January of 2018. So that's not great. I mean, it worked. And I think I got held up in the pacing and we had added new standards and new projects. keep what works and add more things that work, but don't remove things that that might be beneficial, and work them in maybe periodically to be appreciated. If you've never done mindfulness, start slow. I did this video 5-minute mindfulness with the blue balloon guided meditation, and I used to do it in middle school, and that's the last time I did it. So for some reason, my mind said, well, I can't do this in high school. I have to move faster. I have to cover more. I need to be spending all of my time in history, and maybe we should take a moment on Mondays or Fridays and find some room in my schedule where I can fit that in. So that's my takeaway. So I'm grateful to Allison for that.
When my students come in, they're eager to get to work. Like more so than any school or every class I've ever taught. They are so eager and they want to get started. And so I feel that energy, but isn't that the perfect time to stop and take a breath, a few moments of focusing your mind? Because when you're overly eager, that's when you're not thinking clearly. You're not in the moment.
That's true. Like I get taken out of the mindfulness myself because when they walk in for an hour and a half class, I'm already thinking about the activity we'll do in 25 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, like right now I'm thinking about Dick Gale coming in half an hour. But I need to be in this conversation. And
here now.
What I mess up sometimes is that I have a historical journal for every single day, like today in history, 1940. But sometimes I'm so excited about the news that we're going to talk about 10 minutes in that I don't even bring up the journals. And then sometimes it's a A day and then it's a B day the next day. And it's 7th period and I still didn't ask anyone about the journal. Yeah. And I'm like, well, at a certain point, they're going to start wondering why we're even writing the journals if we're not going to talk about them. Absolutely. And I just get so excited that I forget to take each part and make each part important. So that's something even from right now that this day, this conversation has helped with, and it's why we need to reach out to each other for conversation. We got to remember to just
slow down.
It's such a, man, that is an area of struggle that I need to work on.
Right.
Maybe in 2020, start focusing on that.
Yeah, and just like for me, like being mindful where I set that piece of paper down.
Sure.
You know, and looking for my keys for the 100th time today. You know?
Yeah, and then too, like accepting some of the things that are just part of our personality too, because part of that is what makes me such a dynamic electric teacher is that I am moving 1,000,000 miles an hour, and it's interesting. But to make sure that it doesn't come at a fault sometimes is a good reminder.
And that's why I need to live by that failure is always an option model in my class. For me, using that, it was born out of necessity because I couldn't front as a teacher who never does anything wrong. And I know there are teachers out there that can and do, and they thrive on that structure, but that wasn't going to work for me as a teacher.
Good points. Any audience questions? Anyone want to come up and sit down and talk? You are welcome to. The seat is open for you. If you're moved to do so, that's fine. So let's talk about some other goals for the year. It's February. January flew by.
Yeah.
And do you have any goals for this calendar year? Because sometimes we set them in August for a school year, but I like assessing in January. Is there anything that you're working on right now? I can share some if you don't have anything off the bat.
Well, for me, and if you've been listening the whole time, you probably picked up on it's accountability. I keep asking our guests about accountability. How do we hold students accountable for their projects? And I liked a lot of the responses that we got because I think while there is some level of accountability, I also gathered that, you know, if it's truly genuine and the kids are really engaged, then the accountability doesn't need to be as strong in a rigor sort of way.
And if you can create the skill building mentality, then you can trust that you don't have to award points for every day or everything you're doing because you're still getting to the goal of students driving themselves and being self-starters.
It's like if I have one student who's done 4 awesome projects and put their heart and soul into it, and then I have another student who's done 1 awesome project and put her heart and soul in it. Well, does she get a B and the other one gets an A because he did more? No, it doesn't make sense. But how do you measure putting your heart and soul into something? You know,
I think we can witness it is what I see. Like we did posters the last 2 days, and I saw one student draw one person the entire class, and it's like an art project. They were supposed to do a drawing and find 3 quotes and make a paragraph, and she's like, "Mr. Hogger, I didn't finish." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you know what I saw? I saw you working the entire class. I didn't see your phone come out. I saw you doing what you thought was really good work. So I'm going to trust that had I given you more time, you gave me the highest possible quality, which some people just rushed through and put a Sharpie to a paper." And I'm like, you know, because they wanted to finish. And I didn't want to not reward what she was doing.
Yeah.
So I gave her the points, and I think that it was a good reminder to, I don't know.
Yeah.
She's more driven towards art. I gave them an art project. Great.
Yeah.
She was probably really psyched that she got to do that in class instead of just writing.
Yeah, just on Friday, I walked in and two of my advanced students are working on a computer, and like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm looking for another project, and it's like, well, you've been looking for another project for 2 days. And what are you doing? Oh, I'm helping him look for a project. And I look on the computer, and they're playing Pong. They didn't even bother to close the window. They're playing Pong. It's just like, and so that's where my question comes from: is how do we motivate those students that are just?
How did you handle it?
Well, I just gave them the old shop teacher, get out of here, get to work, all the, and then they were working on their projects,
right.
Yeah. But to really, and I know both these kids, they have done projects. They're not totally lazy, and sometimes they just need that break from school as well.
True.
And I'm not adverse to that either, but I definitely have some students that are frothing at the mouth about what their next project should be and really like diving in. And I want them all to have that experience. And I tell them, it's like, look, there is one high school in our district that has a shop class. You are probably not going to have this opportunity again unless you are motivated to go out and do this. So take advantage of it right now while you're here. And I think that really does jive with most of my students.
That's a pretty good approach. I think how we approach those moments is very important, because sometimes that's when I feel my blood boil a little bit, and I don't get angry. Most of my students would agree that I've never really raised my voice at all. And I try to turn it back towards myself. Like, what did I do in terms of my instruction or what I gave them to do that just didn't capture their imagination and make them want to get started?
Right.
Did I not explain it well enough? And this could work at any grade level. Did I just throw it out there and expected that they would know? Because a lot of times as a teacher, you know exactly what you want them to do. But did you explain it?
Yeah.
Did you explain why they're doing it, or what they're supposed to get at the end, or how it's supposed to make them think or feel? A lot of teachers aren't willing to try, aren't willing to take an attempt because they've seen things fail before.
Yeah.
Instead, it should be like, well, okay, was I weak on the guidance because this is the 8th time I've done this?
Yeah.
Did I not give it the same energy as the first time I did it?
I've done that
That's something
so
I've been
many
guilty
times.
of.
Yeah.
Started the day, with a fresh blueberry muffin and a whole night's sleep. Dude, I'm running circles around those kids. I am like Sonic the Hedgehog,
right?
Before they digitally fixed him to make him look less scary. And then by the end, sometimes I'm thinking, well, it works so well the first 3 times, it'll work well again, and I don't need, and that you can't get into that. It's got to be the same energy. So
that's what my biggest goal. Yeah,
I think that's a good set of focus. No, mine are a lot of personal goals, and like this today was one of the goals for us to get here with CTA and do this podcast live. But how can that help my students? For me, the answer is telling them that. I do my goals out front in front of all of them for them to see. And that way there's a couple of things that happen. I'm accountable. Talking about accountability. If I fail and I talked it up to them that I was going to do something and I don't, I feel bad. And then I know they're going to ask me about it. And what that does too is it shows them you can share accountability by sharing things publicly about your goals. It tells them it's okay if you don't make it, because you can revise and you can set it again, or you can change the time frame. Maybe make a list of ABC, how you're going to reach your goals for this year. But it shows them too, I'm not just making them set goals because I think it's some good activity, but because it's helped me a lot. And then I can share them. These are the things that I've reached. You admire those things, a lot of you. What do you want to do that you'll look back and admire about yourself having accomplished in 6 months, 3 months, 12 months? I like that I didn't put those in time order.
So again, I think we keep coming back to this, is that it really is about process, because teaching process to kids is more important than the specific facts. Not that we have a job to teach those facts and those things, but so much about it is that process. And I think that process probably speaks more to what I was talking about earlier about the products, right? Because if you're teaching process, the product of process is going to be a deeply engaged individual, somebody who is diving in and wanting to be really a part of something greater, and see education as that, as a piece of something greater, rather than just the list of facts, rather than just the knowledge that they gain from the list of facts. But
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. So those are some of my goals. Maybe we can touch on more. And I like that the things that you're mentioning with what are we going to get out of it and what's the product. Here's a couple from our friends, inspiring teachers guests that have been on our show. Jeffrey Frieden, also from Southern California in that Inland Empire that we touched on earlier. He tweeted yesterday, in the middle of an inquiry writing assignment with my students, after raising their own questions, they found sources. When we started writing, after that, we found more resources, and the big question today, and he has a picture of his projector, it says, to what extent have the articles you found at the library helped support, challenge, or complicate, those 3 words are bold, your stance on the issue? And I thought that was pretty awesome. Sometimes when I ask them to go chase sources in history class, and I'm sure teachers in science, English, math might find the same, the only goal was to find an answer or to find a fact,
Right.
or to find a detail.
Right.
I don't ask them enough of how what they found supported what they thought, challenged, or complicated their stance. I think that is a wonderful big question, Jeff. Nicely done.
Yeah.
You can follow him at Sir Thrive EDU on Twitter.
They came up with the question, they came up with the resources, and then they came up with what challenges those questions and resources, which is such an important conversation that we need to be having as a society, let alone in the school. But it starts in the school when we teach students to ask the question, and this is something that is really strong in science, is what are the things that could prove my theory wrong? And rather than just proving yourself right,
That's
actively seeking out the ideas that are going to prove you wrong, and to actually try to prove yourself wrong, rather than to sit there and prove yourself
that's
right.
Good, man. That makes me want to create an assignment right now about proving yourself wrong. And I'm going to write that down.
I always loved whenever we did debates in school, taking the opposite side that I believed.
Sure, it's a challenge.
It was just so much more fun. It's like, I know how I would argue this, and then to go up against somebody and to see their arguments that you agree with coming at you, and it's like, okay, how am I going to tell them? I remember I argued vehemently that Huck Finn should be removed from the education system because of the language, and I had all these reasons, and then after the debate, she wanted to continue debating me, and it's like, no, I agree with you. All your points were right. I completely agree. You know, we should not get rid of it, but just to have that experience is so much fun.
That's cool. You give me 2 things to do now, though, which is great. That's what you want. That's what you want out of a conference.
That's
argue
exactly
what you disagree with. That would be really fun. That'd be really fun to do.
Yeah.
And then it ends up strengthening your critical thinking, developing your brain too. And it's inoculation too. If you know what someone is going to argue against you, it strengthens your ability to argue for your point or your side.
Yeah, you're more clear on the flaws of your argument and where you need to support them with greater evidence, not just more I'm right.
Agree. Anyone want to join? Just
Come
offering
on
again.
Come
Don't
on
be
in.
shy. No? All right. Here's Becky Schnexer, another friend of our show.
Oh, yes, Becky.
Should have written the episodes down, but you can Google those. She's a wonderful guest. We've had her on twice. And she is teaching first grade science, and she's been sponsored by Discovery and a whole bunch of really cool programs.
Yeah.
She says first grade is exploring gears. I made a face to illustrate teeth of gears, and we had to pause to take a video together. Don't forget to take time to leave these moments in your day. What she means is she took her cell phone out, and she videotapes her classroom all grinding or gearing their teeth. And then she just remembered and reminded us that, like, take moments out of the planned schedule to have that fun or to be silly. And she's such a silly, fun person. At Schnexer, SCHNEKSER on Twitter. Yeah. She's a great follow and a good friend of our show. Even though she doesn't live anywhere near us, she's just such an energetic person. And I love that she posts videos almost every day. I'm like, dude, how do you have time for that? But when you take a second, and it really doesn't take much time.
Yeah, absolutely. That reminds me of an activity I did in my class where I was teaching about the structure of the eye. And so we had drawn the picture and we had labeled all the parts and everything. And then I realized, I was like, okay, wait, I wonder if this will work. Like, turn out all the lights. Had them turn off the lights, and then I took my Elmo document camera and I brought it up to my eye and set it. And then after a few minutes of being in the dark, I said, okay, you guys ready? Look up here. Don't look at me. Look up here at the projector. And I turned on the light for the Elmo, and the light shined, and they all got to see my iris just, and it was just one of those whoa moments where I just made it super real in that moment. And I used that for many years. I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
If only we could do like 60 minutes of that every day, where
Right.
they're just like, whoa, 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 Those are cool days.
Aha and woes, we should be measuring more than test scores. And
that would be
grades.
nice. That would be really nice. And I mean, ultimately, I suppose as like a career of teaching that we keep gaining more and more tips like that. And I think that's what we want out of the show.
And this conference, that's why we come here, so we can inspire more ahas.
And we did. We've had 3 guests and had at least 3 really good
inspiring
ideas.
Ahas.
Oh, nice. I missed that one. It slipped by me. You got one past the goalie. Nice. Let's go to another friend of the show and continue on.
Yeah.
And this is what's cool about living in an age of tech. All this stuff was shared in this week.
Mm-hmm.
I only had to go down my feed like 3 scrolls.
That's wonderful.
And we've also had all these people on our show, and it's like we've only been doing this for a couple of years, and it's so neat to see how many good people are willingly, freely sharing awesome stuff.
And that's why they're out there. They're putting themselves out there because they want to share this information.
I don't know if I could have been a teacher in a different era.
I know, right?
I really don't. Like being able to access stuff instantly, call up videos and audio at any point to support a question.
And culturally, when I grew up,
failure
was not an option. Failure was never an option in another class. If you make a mistake, you're not gonna go to recess today, and that's part of why I became a teacher. Honestly, is I wanted to change that culture. I wanted to shift it because I did not thrive in school, and I find that a lot of teachers, especially elementary school teachers, did thrive in school, and. Yeah, I'm happy that I get to be a part of a different kind of conversation for education.
Right, and hope we can create a more positive conversation for education. Right. Jesus Huerta is a pretty positive, happy guy. He is a California guy, and he was in the middle of a Q&A, which is another fun thing about Twitter is like you can be nowhere near a school group and see their whole online conversation at night about their PLN and their learning network.
Right.
And he said, who's changed the way I teach? And then he lists like 7 people, most of which we've had on our show, like Adam Welcome and Jay Carippo. He said they've all shared words with me that changed how I teach, #designed-to-learn. And I like how many people are just shouting out the people who are helping each other because he's given us ideas and been on our show. And I think we need to be there for each other and be positive because not every day is easy. And like Mike Patterson was talking about, there's a lot of challenges and inequity and lacking and
systemic problems that we have to fight against as well.
And there will always be, right? As soon as we fix those, there'll be something else. And it's really good to be fired up and to be inspired.
Yeah, I mean, that really was a hard moment that I was speaking with him about, where it's like when we realized, it's like, oh, there's no fight here. They can't do anymore. Yeah, it's literally not there. And so, to have that systemic soldier fighting for us was wonderful.
Yeah, and Taylor Armstrong, at Taylor Does IT, says, sometimes a student is just waiting for someone to believe in them. Will you be that person today? Will you show them that they can? And this is all about what we're doing, too, with Taylor taking a lot of his time to do an instructional coach, tech teaching, being the person that can make a kid's day brighter.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love that this is the message that's being put out there. I don't spend as much time on social media as you do, but I definitely feel like that most of the messages that I receive, and maybe because social media is so good about like keeping us in little bubbles, but is about the student-centered learning. That people are out there promoting that more than like get your test scores up. That's not really being tweeted about as far as I can see.
Yeah. So there you go. There's some positivity, and I think that like Taylor just mentioned, we have to be the positive voice of our classrooms, and sometimes even of our schools or our lunchrooms. And maybe you can't take every moment to do an aha moment, but I think any teacher of any subject could do what I do with current events, and I'm very cautious. I feel like I'm the giver, like that Lois Lowry book where like you give them all negative news, you turn into like jaded little kids who only see harm. So I always finish on a bright story. And my example is from this week. Yesterday, Christina Cook just came back from space, and she was in space for 338 days. I may be a little off on the number. 12 days shy of the all-time record. And she broke a record also held by a female astronaut that was set before her. And her statement to the world and the newspaper was that she hopes her record is broken very soon by another young lady who wants to go into space. So I wanted to talk about that with my students. And like, did you know her name? They're like, nope, because we don't really get that kind of stuff every day.
There's that bubble again.
And we learned a little bit about her and what she's like and what she was doing. We watched an interview with her. It was happened to be on CNN 10, which I'll show like once a week. And that's a good little package of news stories that's already produced that you can get loaded fresh from the day that people might take advantage of. Not every day is a winner. So I kind of look at the stories ahead of time, see if they fit with what I want to go with the mood. And then one of the things that Christina said in the interview about hoping that it's broken soon is also that she wants to inspire a whole generation of young women. So then we held a conversation for the ladies in the class, but for everybody, what are roles like and how can things improve? And when do you think we'll have more equality there? And what I did that surprised them was I went to the NASA website with the projector on. I went to the public relations page. And I found the person responsible for booking interviews. And I picked up my phone in the middle of class and I left a voicemail asking for an interview with her. I said, my students have some pretty cool ideas about this program. If you have time, we're Heritage High School. We would love to book you and talk with you and be able to talk with Christina and ask her a few student questions. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But last year I got 2 or 3 people to be guests like that. And then students see that these people are all within reach. Their goals are within reach. They live in a time that you can contact anybody by social media or email and maybe make a contact that can help you accomplish great things. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's wonderful when we just reach out and ask. How often we get to hear yes, how eager people are to be a part of these things.
And you know what, man, is like even when you don't hear yes, you've got to continue on until you get to a yes. Maybe not with the same person. Don't go out and Mr. Hogger says, I love doing those quotes. Mr. Hogger says, go pester people until they say, nope. But be resilient and keep trying, and maybe someone else in the same genre.
Yeah.
I have TAs right now who sometimes I don't need them to do anything. I'm like, book us a guest speaker. Give me one by the end of the month. Someone brought in someone who's a military member who just got back from Afghanistan. And we were learning about World War I. And I just asked him, what's it like? What do we not know from our books? Because I've never been there. I'm grateful for your service. I'm grateful that there are people who willingly defend the country. Tell my students what it's like. What was your day? What was your normal? Yeah. What was your morning? And a lot of the students thought it was so cool. And 2 students came up to me after and said, I didn't know you could join the Army and play the trumpet, or join the Army and be in a radio job there. And then 2 of them asked for their card and might contact the recruiting office. I'm like, exploration is such a cool thing. We're learning about history. This guy's from your area. This guy is serving right now. And how does this tie in? There's so many cool possibilities. If you look outside the book, man, you can really liven up a great lesson.
Right, absolutely. I mean, just bringing in those resources. I got the opportunity during career day to have in my class the architect who designed Pottery Barn Kids, and he did the Harry Potter line, and that really just inspired so many of my students, because I was teaching drafting, which is kind of an antiquated thing at this point. Back when I was a kid, it had to be absolutely perfect every line, because that's how it was in a drafting studio. Now it's all CAD. No one picks a piece of paper and a pencil unless you're in your garage and you don't have CAD and you want to build a shelf and you need to quickly come up with a design. So now I'm augmented the rigorous drafting that I learned in high school to just being kind of like, here's how you do a basic design. You want to draw kind of to scale. You want to make sure you have all your arrow markers and everything. And so, yeah, that's just having that guest speaker really helped validate what I was doing. And